G'day guys, welcome to this week's weekly developer update. I'm CW, and once again we have Joe. How are you, mate?
Doing pretty well. Big week.
Huge week, pretty exciting. One of the things that sort of initially drew me into the ecosystem, one big thing is storage rent. It actually was activated a couple of hours ago from when we record this video. Yeah, huge for the ecosystem.
It's a big win. It's unique for Ergo. If you look at a blockchain, right, it's just a replicated database. And for some reason, almost every replicated database has no real ability to maintain it long term, which seems like a terrible idea. You can look at it in a way like some sort of free cloud service that, users just have this expectation they can have their data, their assets stored indefinitely at no cost.
Yep.
Right. And long term, that's just not sustainable, especially as there's this idea out there that, we should, go faster and faster and have more data in these systems. And if there's no ability to maintain the database, it's just going to become some bloated monster.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of initial figures from various other blockchains and the size of and the bloat that they've actually sort of entailed. You did mention speed, and then the size then correlating to the size of the blockchain itself. So people always want the biggest, fastest, shiniest thing in the ecosystem, but like you said, all that data storage comes at a cost.
Yeah, it comes at a real world cost. So Ergo was born from this idea that it was going to be a solo miners network. And so, as a solo miner, you have to carry the full weight of the chain state, right? You have to have a full node mine on top of it. And not so sustainable long term if, we're going to have no ability to prune or manage the size or set of that database. So storage rent also has some really unique economic use cases and components. For those of you that don't know, there's kind of I would call it almost like a two-tiered situation that emerges from storage rent as it currently is implemented. And it's important to point out that the parameters around storage rent are adjustable. So, costs can increase or decrease in time, depending on what the miners decide. So right now we're landing at about 0.14 erg is kind of the fee cost, right? If you leave your box, let's say in one place for 4 years, you're subject to storage rent, right? And there's kind of two situations. You have boxes out there on the network that have the erg necessary to make that payment. And storage rent in that case can only be charged by miners because they have to recreate the UTXO minus the rent charge. And then you have these other interesting boxes out there that don't have the capacity to pay rent. And so they're subject to seizure, right? And so, as of this morning, there was a couple of, a lot of boxes out there that, did not have the erg necessary to pay rent. So people started using bots to try to destroy and spend that box.
Yeah, it's I like the term that you used on Twitter, storage wars, because end of the day, from one perspective, you did mention it's a two-tiered sort of system. So if you do have the erg there, the mining pools themselves are the ones who will fight over a block and then have the ability to spend those UTXOs that are subject to storage rent. But then on the other, with the botting side of things, people running up, sort of outdoing themselves on the tiers of fees to be able to spend that box, and storage wars let everyone at it. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it creates a new economic primitive that I'm really curious, and I always have been, to see how it plays out. Where, let's say that I'm a mining pool, okay? I have the option when it comes to these boxes to let open markets kind of decide what bots are willing to pay based on, the premium or profit they want to get. and I can just, include the top transaction in my mempool and get some extra erg, right? But then there's also this idea, well, what if, because I'm the block producer and I have the ability to select boxes or select transactions to include in my block, what if I just, throw out the minimum bid, I include my own and ignore all of the botting out there, and I start to develop my own little portfolio of native assets, right? And, short term, I could potentially distribute that, but what if I could start participating in DeFi, right? And so, potentially I could create more. It'd be longer arc thinking, but what if I could create more, of a revenue stream on top of my block reward that then becomes something that potentially I could rely on to subsidize my miners and create just a new primitive or revenue stream for my pool. It's kind of like some weird variation of kind of the MEV bots we saw on Ethereum back in the day. It will take some time to mature, but then we have another really interesting thought, and that's whenever you have, let's say, a smart contract gone wrong, or I don't know, sometimes you have these experiments where people will, play on mainnet instead of on the test net, and erg will get locked in certain things, or other assets may get locked at some point. They're going to be subject to rent, right? And so you are going to have, I would say, periodically these really unique boxes that drop, where you kind of have like the lotto side come into play, where I'll use the example of Comet. I know that they had a smart contract that worked with GetBlock, where they put a bunch of their meme token into to subsidize miners. Well, unfortunately, GetBlock was kind of a victim of market conditions, right?
Yep.
And so that smart contract is still on chain somewhere, and at some point, there's just gonna be a massive amount of Comet that goes to somebody, unless they delete it. Who knows?
Yeah. So that was it'd probably be about 3 years time thereabouts. My memory serves me correct, when sort of GetBlock sort of tied up. But yes, it's really interesting because, like you said, people being able to spend boxes, there could even be, say, $50,000 worth of a token in there, but then only 0.01 of an erg to hold that, and then you can't pay rent obviously on that condition if it hasn't been spent within 4 years or moved within those 4 years. So it could be a huge economic incentive there for people to sort of start looking at this, because in the long run, like I said, people building portfolios, whether that's people botting or mining pools themselves, providing that extra revenue stream. We saw how big the MEV ended up being on Ethereum when it was proof of work as well. So once someone does have that economic advantage, then the rest will sort of follow suit and hopefully build upon what their advantage is.
From the development side, I really love the idea that there's long term, there's no such thing as a failed experiment in terms of, you create a smart contract or you lock funds somewhere. Eventually, all of that economic energy is going to move back to market one way or the other, right? And I'm really curious to see how that plays out long term. I know that as of now, I think it was Hero Miners and a couple other pools were saying, hey, we're going to start looking into supporting storage rent. And but I think it's a great thing that, miners get paid a little bit extra. And hopefully, our hash rate's been, unfortunately, concentrating around 2 miners, which it seems somewhat normal, and given the state of the market, and there's a tendency for hash power to concentrate when things aren't so great. But hopefully that kind of reverses that trend, because it actually creates a organic incentive to potentially mine to other pools.
Yep, most definitely. So that's talking about sort of storage rent and the considerations around that. How does one sort of consolidate their boxes or look into their box age and the amount of boxes they have in their wallets and things?
Sure. So if you use Nautilus or the Ergo wallet on Android or Terminus on iPhone, you know, there's tools there to check the age of your boxes, and you know, it's as simple as kind of sending a transaction to yourself, right? Now I do think long term we might see some more sophisticated tools to where, you know, it perhaps is easier in the UI, or yeah, you know, get some notification pop-ups or something along that line. You know, it is relatively new. And so it could be a little bit messy at times. But I do think that, you know, as it becomes more of a normal function and people understand like the assumptions and the benefits of compressing their boxes, you know, that consolidation probably will become more common over time. But it's new. It's something that, you know, no other project has attempted. It kind of creates this really unique, I don't know, idea around Erg that it's, you know, never really destroyed or lost, and you know, the chain over time kind of digests itself to maintain a certain state for a period of time. So it's a really cool idea. It has some unique kind of economic outcome where you get this idea of demurrage or stable supply, and I'm excited long term. I think it's definitely a big milestone for the ecosystem, and I hope there's a lot of unique things that are built on top of it that are pretty ergo-centric.
Yeah, most definitely. Very, very exciting for the ecosystem. Like I said, it's very unique to Ergo. It's just a matter of sort of educating some people, because they might not necessarily know that this is included in the blockchain. So a bit of education goes a long way. We don't want people thinking that your Erg is being stolen or anything like that. It's always one thing that could enter people's minds, but just to sort of put some so your mind at ease a little as well. If you do have one Erg in a box, it'll take 32 years to be consumed totally by storage rent with the current fee structure as it currently is. So if you do have a number of Erg in there and you're worried about sort of a store of value or long-term hodling and things like that, yeah, it's going to take a long, long time for that to be actually consumed by the mining pools.
Yeah, it's not a heavy fee, but you know, sometimes people structure their boxes in weird ways, right? So please know your assumptions and check that. I would recommend every user out there be aware of that.
Yeah, most definitely, especially things like NFTs and things like that. They'll also be subject to storage rent. So if you're just sending one NFT to an address and you're storing things like that, yeah, always be mindful of that.
Creates a lot of unique things. You know, you can have like governance tokens or you know, contracts. Like there's a lot that you might not want digested, and so you really have to pay attention. That goes beyond the users, even to potential developers out there.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the last thing you sort of want to go missing, isn't it? Having governance keys to contracts and this and that, and end up in the wrong hands, etc.
There's a lot of ways that could go wrong, so people need to know their assumptions and manage their risk.
Yep, most definitely. All right, mate. Well, let's jump into the update this week. So, kicking things off this week, it looks like we have a new contributor to the ecosystem, Chris45. So, hello there. This is my first contribution to the Ergo ecosystem. So, what he's been doing is actually doing some Indonesian translations. So, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, welcome to the ecosystem, and thanks very much for the contribution.
That's great to see some Indonesian. I know that you joined the Saturgo wallet group as well and was working on that. So awesome to see.
Yeah. It's also important to note, having IndoDAX for the Indonesian market. Indonesia's a very populous country, and a lot of crypto users down there. So it's, yeah, very welcome addition there.
Absolutely. All right. And next, it looks like we have Ilya from Spectrum. Looks like you finally released the first iteration of the Spectrum protocol design. Made a tool for distributed testing of Spectrum's networking protocols. The Ergo Spectrum connector implementation has been pulled, it looks like, and working on consensus driver implementation for Spectrum network. Awesome to see.
Awesome. Yeah, that one's going to be big as well. The layer 2 there for the Spectrum boys. Okay, next up we have LiquidPhase. Hard at it again with the terahertz.fm project. So pretty substantial update. Kicking things off, got the single page app version up and running. So without content on React and TypeScript, and Byte on top of the Frappe as an API handler. Also uploaded the repo to tremendously high frequency GitHub. Set up a Postman collection API endpoints JSON file. That's for the terahertz.fm API. The API can be used for read access of public materials like release albums, or can be also be used for logins and authenticate subsequent post and delete content with the API as well. So that's using users access level. They can only delete or edit their own content. The Good Fleet SDK team provided the code for the fleet, which also allows the mint NFTs using the third-party cryptography library. So it's not an official release, but because it uses a third-party library and believe that they want to do everything in-house for official releases, but it enables them to get started faster on the terahertz while they wait for the official release. And as long as we keep an eye out on the third-party hashes package to ensure that it stays safe to use until that time. Also, the first successful mint of an audio NFT using Fleet SDK has happened. So it's from the local dev environment in the link provided. Has also refracted the TypeScript apps.tsx file into the constituent parts. So navbar.tsx, notifications, APIs, etc. So the coding's more compartmentalized. The code base is cleaner and other devs will have an easier time working with the code. So push the updates to GitHub. And the next focus is customizing more JavaScript on the front end for user experience and performance of the server. Realized MP3 conversion script. So it should happen in JavaScript rendered by the user, not Python rendered by the server, unless there's a fallback mechanism for the non-JS users. Huge happening there.
Yep. Looks like next we have Captain Nemo, Nautilus team update. ErgoMeta is an Ergo off-chain registry for tokens, contracts, and dApps. Added token entry specification and schema validations. Tested various technical stacks. Dino seems to be the way to go for CI or CL validations and static API building. For SigmaJS, added TypeScript type defs, added CL for running JS tests, release, and snapshot publishing.
What's to see? Next, we have C8. Thanks for shortening your name, mate. And the Bitmasks update. So 69 new Bitmasks were minted since the breeding has launched. Thanks, everyone. And shout out to core devs for stability and efficiency of the node. Has 0 issues. I think the greasy sex crew would like the number of Bitmasks that have been minted.
Next, we have MHS with Rosen Bridge. So for the public launch, we've created finished the creation of all contract addresses and config boxes. Continued on configuration of test servers. The final private test is ongoing and will ensure all the refactored codes are working as intended. Some deals have been made and some talks are in order to bootstrap the Rosen Light guard set. So for Rosen Light, it's the first era of Rosen Bridge, with the focus on acquiring more watchers and bootstrapping the bridge. The guard set will be small, however, and that's important to note. Please consider redeeming any bridged assets in the following days. Since the public test period is going to be finished soon, any remaining asset will be considered as a donation. So know your assumptions there, everybody. I hope everybody unwraps, moves towards the home chain. So for the Rosen Bridge Watcher app and the Rosen Guard app, finished the first version of the desktop app development for the launch. The applications will be published soon in the GitHub for Rosen Bridge UI. So that's pretty sweet. We're going to see some desktop apps out there, and hopefully once they're released, we can get some tutorials and some community support on that. Started the development of our P2P packages. We decided to extract all of our P2P logic from Guard and Relay apps and put them in their own mono repo. For the TSS API, which is a wrapper for the TSS library from Binance, the key generation scenario has been implemented successfully and integrated within the TS Guard service. This has also been tested successfully. It looks like they're writing GitHub Actions, Docker file, Docker Compose files to facilitate on easy development of the TS Guard service. So pretty big update there. A lot of tools coming together. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what the desktop app looks like. That's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, providing an easy solution for people to be able to run infrastructure and things like that. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, scrolling down, it looks like we have Kushti next. So on the Ergo protocol and reference client development front, he's polished and tested bootstrapping with NIPoPoWs. So it says it works well and going to merge into 5.0.13 and release in a few days. That's a huge one. And then on other matters, audit and tests for Pheonix HodlCoin contracts. So tests are now moved to the main repo and extended significantly by MGpai. The Dexy charts API is mostly done by Code for Us. The next part is LP backend and then UI. And then also working on GORT, which is Gold Oracle Rewards Token, tokenomics.
GORT token.
I love it. But yeah, NIPoPoWs, that's a huge one as well. That's another one, like I mentioned in the intro, about one thing that drew me to the ecosystem. And you hear the term thrown around wildly from time to time, and it's finally here. So maybe we can sort of touch on NIPoPoWs a little.
Sure. So NIPoPoWs stand for non-interactive proof of work. Basically, when you have proof of work, you have this random occurrence where you have extra zeros in the block, and it can be used to kind of check mark the chain to kind of create a scenario where you create like a chain above the base chain of those specific blocks, and you can use them to kind of compress the chain state. It's pretty cool stuff. It's random. I know that there's a website out there. I think it's NIPoPoWs.org. I hope it's .org. It might be .com.
.com. I think it's NIPoPoWs.com.
Well, there you go.
Just Google it.
Yeah, Google it. Then there's a lot of potential technology you can use, and it creates like a ultralight environment. A lot of I don't know, fancy words. I like to say in simple terms, it just allows you to use less computational resources, right? Yeah. Compression technique at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. It's just syncing the NIPoPoW headers and skipping the X amount of blocks in between, sort of compressing the blockchain in that respect.
All right. So next we have greenhat. Looks like from his progress, he finished testing the voting for the gold erg pool on testnet. Returned HTTP error 503 for pool health and Oracle health endpoints when the health is not okay. Detailed error messages on the config files, loading failure. Work in progress is revamped the ergo tree evaluation errors. Next is to continue the ergo tree evaluation errors revamp. And on a personal note, looks like greenhat is going to take a few days off Wednesday and Thursday next week. Have a good time.
Yep. Always good to refresh and recharge. Okay, next we have Luivatra and the Paideia beta. The proposal integration is nearing completion. Internal test sometime in the coming weeks. And then once the experience is smooth, they'll open it up to the public testing. And then on the Crux front, investigating Rust as a potential backend language. So far is impressed with the tooling and general experience.
That's awesome. Looks like next we have Koutelier from Comet. So rather than just being the meme token, we also are experimenting with HodlCOMET, which might seem as it is a cheap copy of HoldErg, but it isn't. It almost costs a lot to not mork. Today we gave him one last warning because he was working on HodlCOMET. Apparently, Comet started from the core members. I have nearly lost 350 ergs worth of Comet in the lottery scam at MGpai made, and not Mork almost lost his job today. So please stay away. The love of Kushti, don't buy Comet. P.S. about the boring technical stuff, not Mork can inform you one other time when his job is not at risk. So looks like he's provided the HodlCOMET website and also proof that he's an idiot.
It cracks me up. These boys have so much fun. So if you want to have a bit of a laugh here, click on one of these images. Okay, scrolling down. Who do we have next? Another update here from Chris45. Has another translation here. So that's the second contribution.
So it looks like SigmaUSD now has some Indonesian support. That's great to see.
Okay, next, Pragmaxim has migrated the uexplorer to Zio. So it has a number of pools here, the SQL backend, the entire effect system and logging, and now going to be cleaning it all up for a few days, and then we'll jump on the REST API.
All right, it looks like after that we have Morphic. So not much progress this week on his side for Sigma. He prepared a release candidate version 5.0.10 RC for review. With Ergo, he reviewed the NIPoPoW bootstrapping PR for the second time. Started work on upgrading to the latest Sigma, which is version 5.0.10. And up next, continue multi-sig implementation.
Sweet. Okay, next it looks like we have Aberg and the Saturgo front. Ergonnection, so it's a P2P node communication library, has added handling for network modifier messages. So that allows users to listen for example, transactions broadcast on the network in real time.
All right, looks like next we have Austen with GCX.
You don't want to say it?
The first dev update, currently working on finalizing the Greasy mission #1. So far, we've had 3 peer reviews and working to get a few more to apply more experience to the mission's plan. Hopefully to have mission #1 paper out in 3 to 4 weeks, followed by an AMA regarding the mission. Completed in the last few weeks, the Greasy paper has been completed, shared via GCX Twitter. The web page is update progress. High quality erg is managing the UI. Currently using temporary placeholder landing page via the ErgoCube server. NFTs, the full collection is complete, ready for minting. Minting will be done in 24 to 48 hours before the emission. Greasy mission #1 paper, we have confirmed all the tokenomics and are programmable, including the NFT airdrop ratios, as Pulsars is managing this portion of the mission. Spectrum listing, the official listing, shout out to the team for that support. Next step, continue peer review of the mission paper #1, content building for mission #1 marketing, the tokenomics infographic for mission #1, and new website in prep for the first mission with links to the Greasy paper.
Come on, mate, just say it once. Good to see another meme coin getting involved in things and sort of building some utility.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have MGpai and has been busy on multiple fronts. So on Lilium, he's working on ErgoPay support, and everything's been great since the mainnet launch, which is great to see. On ErgoNames, the UI render is almost complete, and then front running has been patched, and also researching subdomain support. On the ZenGate front, database design is mostly complete, and it was also migrated to Superbase. On Pheonix, wrote tests for the bank contract, proxy contract, and the dev fee contract, also patching some minor things for the proxy and dev contracts, and has provided a repo there. The Ergo Offchain bot template says updated AppKit and Plasma, added support for writing tests. He's working on a separate Node.js service for producing and filtering input boxes. So we'll use either 0MQ or Kafka, and has provided another link there as well.
All right, next it looks like we have Noah Ergo, who's covering for Krasavice over at Duck Pools. Over the past few weeks, we've been hard at work getting SigUSD, SigRSV, and Quax pools into private testing. The SigUSD pool is currently in private testing with a few members from Discord helping to report on issues. Sig Reserve and Quax are almost ready to go into private testing. These pools took a little longer than expected to complete, but after modifying some of the off-chain bot and front-end code, things should be a little more scalable now for implementation of any future pools, which is great to see that design. We've been working on simple protocol voting smart contracts, which are now near complete, as well as documentation for those. It's going to be an extremely busy period over the coming weeks, but rest assured, we will be working as hard as we can to get the launch as soon as possible. So awesome to see.
Yep, happy days. Another DeFi sort of primitive here in the Ergo. It's great to see that the pool lendings front will be sort of opened up for everyone to use. And next we have Death Grips on and the Analog Ergo update. It's working on a video demo, soon trademark. And just quickly, Chris45 has a third contribution for the Ergo ecosystem. And this one looks to be the translation for the Explorer front end.
That's awesome.
Yeah, been very busy. Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, he's knocking out the Indonesian translations. That's amazing. Looks like next we have LGD with Guap Swap. I modified the architecture slightly for the Guap Swap service in case in the future more dexes pop up on Ergo, which I certainly would love to see. I finished the Spectrum service contract. I'm working on new Guap Swap proxy contract, which miners can use to receive their mining pool payouts. Should have all the contracts for V2 launch done this week, then can move to the off-chain code implementation. Awesome to see.
Yeah.
LGD.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things in the Ergo ecosystem as well. It's not really sort of recognized or given the credit that it's actually deserved is Guap Swap and what it can do for miners in regards to sort of distributed mining or portfolio mining. It's pretty cool.
I think that once we get some bridged assets, yeah, Guap Swap potentially gets a lot more interesting, you know, because you could use the example like right now there are a lot of miners that are using two miners specifically because there's a swap and they get paid out in Bitcoin. Well, you know, you get a lot more flexibility in terms of the potential assets you can get paid out in. I think that might be something that some miners are interested in.
Yeah, exactly. Have Ergo being proof of work, they might want to start building a position in proof of stake, and you can do that with your mining hardware, potentially mining ADA once it's bridged into the Ergo ecosystem, just for an example, which is, yeah, fantastic.
I mean, it opens some really unique possibilities. You can mine something that's mined traditionally with ASICs with your GPU, or even something like Monero that's CPU based. You know, you end up kind of swap mining. So there's a lot of interesting use cases there.
Yep, most definitely. It's all sort of coming together, which is fantastic and it's really exciting to see. Okay, mate, that sums up this weekly developer update. Once again, I don't know where to start. It's really exciting. The amount of sort of development, everything that's going on in the ecosystem, and like I mentioned a little bit earlier as well, is a number of things that sort of drew people into Ergo is actually sort of coming to light now and actually being released on mainnet and things like that as well. So yeah, it's exciting time to be involved in the Ergo ecosystem.
Yeah, there's a lot happening out there. You know, even beyond what shows up in these weekly updates. So that's off to the community for really pushing through times where, you know, certainly the grander market sentiment's not always the greatest. Yet here we are still building. There's a lot of open source stuff, some nice ideas, collaboration, cool ecosystem to be proud of. I'm really proud.
Yep, most definitely. And having new contributors just coming in and finding a little hole in the what actually needs to be plugged, and little translations could be as simple as that. You might not have any dev experience, but you can speak a certain language or a number of languages and just help out on that front. It's huge for the ecosystem.
Yeah, there's always some way you can contribute if you want, and it is proof of work, right? So those of you out there that are willing to do some work, you know, even if it's not in your GPU, it's appreciated.
Yep, most definitely. All right, guys, thanks again for tuning in for this weekly developer update. Always a pleasure bringing them to you with Joe. Thanks very much chatting, mate.
Yeah, always. See you next week.
Catch you guys. Have a good one.